This is why we love the Champions League, a special night for Ruben Amorim as his last home match as sporting manager. He defeats Manchester City with the help by Victor Gyökeres hat-trick. And speaking of hat-tricks, Luis Diaz with his first career hat-trick at Anfield against a Bayer Leverkusen team who was managed by Xabi Alonso on his return to Anfield. I mean, the script just doesn't write itself. I mean, this is just a magical night of UEFA Champions League ball. And then don't forget, Real Madrid also dropping points, losing two consecutive matches, first against Barcelona in the Clásico in a 4-1 loss, and now against AC Milan. AC Milan, who are showing their best form, and they haven't done so all season, but they showed out at the Santiago Bernabeu. And of course, we're going to talk about the other storylines given in this UEFA Champions League match week 4. We got more games coming up tomorrow, but I just wanted to give my reaction to these games because there were some spicy matches going on. But before we get into it, make sure you guys follow, subscribe, check out all the links down below. Help us reach 5K on all platforms. That would be greatly appreciated. Welcome back to another episode of Charla Football. I'm your host, Gerardo, and let's get into this match week 4 of the UEFA Champions League. We'll start off in Madrid. Real Madrid versus AC Milan. Real Madrid desperate for a win, especially how they performed against Barcelona and how disappointing and destructive that was for their confidence. They needed a boost. Vinny Jr. also posting on Twitter that he's going to come back 10 times stronger after losing out on the Balón de Oro. So just a mess for Real Madrid on the pitch and behind the scenes as well. So they needed a result. It was a clash of two giants, AC Milan, one of the most historical teams, if not the second most historical team in the world, right behind Real Madrid. And yeah, Real Madrid were not able to show out and show up today. It was Milan, who have only won once this season away from home, and that was against Monza in the league. And they go to the Santiago Bernabeu, a place that is very difficult to even get a result, like let alone a draw or a win. But Milan pulled off the unexpected, and I didn't expect that. I don't think anybody expected this. Everybody expected Real Madrid to react, given how difficult of a past few weeks that they've had. But we see that they are struggling on the pitch tactically. I mean, Mbappe was a no-show once again, and the games where he needs to show up, Vinicius as well just wasn't there. He does convert the penalty for Madrid, but it was never enough. Milan always looked like they were the better team. Milan were always relentless going forward, and I mean, they scored past Lunin 3 times, and honestly, because of Lunin, it really could have been 4-1 or 5-1. So Lunin really keeping Real Madrid in this match. I think I don't understand Ancelotti, and I don't understand why he is so insistent on keeping Chouameni in that midfield. He made two big mistakes in the first two goals for AC Milan. That was all on Chouameni. Chouameni was marking Chow, I believe, in the corner kick that Christian Pulisic delivered, and that was his man. And Chow just had a very comfortable header into the back of the net when Chouameni really should have done better. And then the second goal, a goal where Chouameni, I think, kind of gets confused in giving a ball into Vinicius, but he wasn't fully convinced with that pass. It was a kind of a soft pass. Pulisic reads it quite well. He pounces on the ball, takes it, crosses it into Leao, who takes a shot, and it falls right into the path of Alvaro Morata, who scores against his former club, and then Reinders getting his third goal in 3 matches in general for AC Milan. And I mean, he's in great goal scoring form. And just like that, Milan win 3-1 at the Santiago Bernabeu. But yeah, I mean, Chouameni, for me, he cannot be starting in that midfield for Madrid. He's not good enough on the ball defensively. He hasn't shown his best version either. I mean, that version that we've seen like at least 2 years ago. I mean, that player that everyone was expecting him to be is not really showing up. I think Amavinga is a much better defender. I mean, on the ball, his ball retention is incredible. His work rate is incredible. He can always win the ball back, especially if he loses it. But Chouameni just doesn't have that in him. I think Amavinga is a much smarter player. And you saw when he came in, he created a few more chances. I think it was his ball into Rodrigo. Then Magnan punches it out, and then Rudiger finishes. That could have sparked the 3-2. It was controversially called for an offside. You guys let me know if that was offside or if he was impeding play or whatever. I really don't think that should have been disallowed. I think it could have been a 3-2 game. But I mean, just glimpse of what Camavinga, if he's starting, really what he can do. Yeah, Camavinga has to be playing over Chouameni 100%. Real Madrid, I don't know. Like I said it in the last podcast, in the El Clásico podcast. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you go watch that. But Real Madrid, I don't know where they go from here. I mean, the simple fix is to take out Mbappe and then go back to how they were playing last season. But you can't do that because Mbappe was their star player. So I mean, really, it's just a mess that Ancelotti has inherited. That Florentino Perez has thrown onto Ancelotti and to all the players because I mean they looked so they looked so uniform. They looked united in this past season, and then going into this season, it's just out of whack, really, and it shows on the field, and it's obviously disastrous now, and it's getting to a point where I mean, emergency alarms are ringing for Real Madrid. So we'll see what happens with Real Madrid. It's their first loss, I believe, in the champion. Oh, second loss actually. It's their second loss in the Champions League. One against Lille and now against AC Milan. So I mean, they could be in danger if they don't get the next few results. They play against Atalanta and then they play against a Liverpool who are on fire. And going to Liverpool, let's talk about first the return of the prodigal son, Xabi Alonso, who last year with Bayer Leverkusen, we all know Bayer Leverkusen was one of the best teams in the world, if not the best team in the world. They went invincible, and that was all due to Xabi Alonso, his tactics, and him being able to get the best out of the players that he had. And it's weird because it's not like Bayer Leverkusen lost any players. I think they even signed a few good players. I'm specifically thinking of Alex Garcia from Girona. But yeah, it was the return of Xabi Alonso to Anfield and Liverpool. Arne Slot completely spoiled the party. A 4-0 win for Liverpool, and Liverpool showing as to why they are on top of the Premier League table. Now I think on top of the UEFA Champions League table. And I mean, really just didn't give Xabi Alonso any room for celebration, to be honest. This was a very bad showing from his team, Xabi Alonso's team, especially in that second half where they just completely fell apart. Luis Diaz, kudos to him. He got his first career hat trick, and I think he was influential for 100% in that second half for Liverpool to get this 4-0 victory. A much needed victory, of course, for Liverpool. I think they had recently beat Leipzig away, so to go to Anfield against such a difficult opponent like Bayer Leverkusen and then treat them and play them as if they were Dinamo Zagreb, beating them 4-0. I mean, it was just insane. And I've kind of felt bad for Bayer Leverkusen because they performed pretty well, I think, in the first half. At least defensively, they were solid and they weren't skipping a beat. But once Liverpool got that first goal, Curtis Jones into Luis Diaz chipping the goalkeeper. I mean, a beautiful finish, first off. And I think I've already mentioned this before, but Luis Diaz, his clinicality in front of goal has definitely improved. I mean, from last season to a couple seasons ago, I mean, in front of goal, he was kind of on and off. But now, I mean, you put him in front of goal, he's going to finish whatever he has. And that's exactly what happened. Three chances in front of goal, puts him away. Three goals, a hat trick. And yeah, spoiling Xabi Alonso's party and his return to Anfield. It's unfortunate for Xabi Alonso. It's probably one of the worst losses, if not the worst loss that he has conceded as Bayer Leverkusen manager. So it was a quite embarrassing showing, to be honest. We already know how good Liverpool are, but I mean, I thought Leverkusen were a lot better. I mean, I've seen their games. They definitely, in my eyes, were one of the best teams in Europe, given how they were playing. But how can everything just fall apart so easily? I know in the league they're not doing too great. They're not on top of the table, but I think they're like in third or fourth. In the league, Leverkusen are fourth right now. But to then go to Anfield and put on that kind of display, I mean, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know what happened or what went on in the team talk, or I think maybe just Liverpool were too good for a team like Bayer Leverkusen. And this is exactly what we were saying last season. Yeah, we considered them one of the best teams in Europe or in the world, but we have to see them perform against the greatest oppositions, especially in the Champions League. Then we can really see and test where they're really at. And I guess I mean that's kind of what we're seeing. I think the first game they showed out, they beat Feyenoord like 4-0, no problem. But I mean, when it comes to a team like Liverpool, you can't be dropping. I mean, four goals, definitely no, not like that. So I mean, I think this was kind of a reality call, a wake up call for a team like Leverkusen for Xabi Alonso's men, because I don't know if they got comfortable. I think they maybe have gotten a little comfortable because of all the silverware. Yeah, they really got to step it up if they're gonna try to get back in the Champions League and also not embarrass themselves in this current format of the Champions League as well. And on top of all these surprises, we go to Lisbon, Sporting versus Manchester City. Ruben Amorim, the now new Manchester United manager, as it was recently confirmed that he will be heading to Manchester United, facing off against a rival club or a future rival club in Manchester City. We've seen this game play out a few times in the Champions League before, and I mean Ruben Amorim wasn't always at the helm of these games, I believe. But I mean, in recent seasons in the group stages, they have played against each other, and City have always thrashed Sporting, especially at home. But yeah, I mean, today was just a completely different story. Ruben Amorim ball is the truth. Ruben Amorim has implemented this style, this 3-4-3 into this Sporting team, and they look like Manchester City more than Manchester City look like Manchester City, if that makes any sense. Manchester City have now 3 consecutive losses. They lost against Spurs and eliminated from the cup. They lost against Bournemouth in the league recently, I think just a few days ago. And now this 4-1 loss against Sporting. I mean, this is quite a sad showing, to be honest, for Manchester City. I don't know if it's arrogance or if it's overconfidence, because I mean, when you go back to the game against Spurs, you see the players laughing on the bench, kind of not really caring what the result was. And I think that is starting to seep into the players, into the field. They feel like since they have the best coach in the world and since they feel like they're the best players in the world, they can kind of step off of the gas pedal a little bit. But that's really not the case, especially in the Champions League, because then results like these happen. Even if you think Sporting was an easy, light task, obviously they're showing that they're not. And Sporting, I mean, where do I even start with them? First, let's start with Ruben Amorim. Like I said, he's going to Manchester United. This was his last home game as a Sporting coach. So obviously, the people were giving him a beautiful send off. It was a full stadium. It was a party in Lisbon because I mean, Ruben Amorim has done everything for Sporting. He's brought them 2 league trophies. I mean, he's gotten them into Champions League, and now they're undefeated in the Champions League so far. And then to beat Manchester City, I'm sure the Sporting Lisbon fans are going to be missing him dearly, 100%. But I think I want to go back to the press conference that he recently gave. I'm not sure. I think it was the most recent press conference, where Amorim says that if the result is negative, the expectations about me will drop. But if we win, they will think me, the Manchester United fans will think of me as the new Sir Alex Ferguson, as he's just arrived or whatever. And I mean, firstly, Manchester United fans cannot think so highly of this coach. They have to let him settle into the Premier League. It is a completely different league, different pace. But I mean, how can you not be hopeful after a result like this? Ruben Amorim now going to be a Manchester United coach, beating one of the biggest rivals in Manchester City, and not just beating them, but just embarrassing and playing them off of the park. And I know City were also had some key players missing. We're talking about Rodri, Kovacic is starting. One of their defenders, Poussey, was starting at the back. There was no Nathan Ake. There was no John Stones. There was no Kyle Walker. Maybe if they had a full healthy squad, it would have been a different story, but there's no excuse. If you consider yourself to be one of the best teams in the world, like Manchester City are, they are one of the best teams in the world. You cannot be losing 4-1 against Sporting. And that's not trying to discredit anything that Sporting has done, but 4-1 I think is excessive. And then, I mean, let's move over to Victor Gyökeres, who gets a hat trick on the day. At first I thought he was going to choke under the pressure of, a lot of people were going to be watching this game. He knows that a lot of fans were going to be tuning in to see how he performs, how Amorim performs, how Sporting can perform against Manchester City. And already those talks are of Amorim will probably try to bring him to Manchester United within the next season or two. And the first opportunity he had after City were already 1-0 up, he scuffs it. He has like 30, 40 yards of space. Probably the easiest goal he could have scored all night. One-on-one with Ederson. I think he tries to chip him, and Ederson, I mean, didn't duck, didn't move. It goes right to his hand. And I thought, oh shit, like this guy's gonna crumble under all this pressure. But on the contrary, he steps it up. And I think on a more difficult play where he's one-on-one with his defender, he finishes, he equalizes, and then there's 2 penalties, of course, that help Sporting get the lead, of course he's going to be the one that takes it because he is the designated penalty kick taker. And Victor Gyökeres in the penalty spot, he is deadly, he's lethal. I think that's already 22 or 23 goals in all competitions for Victor Gyökeres, and there's only been 17 games that he's played with. I mean, and that's talking UEFA Champions League and in the league and maybe any cup games as well. So to have 23 goals to your name and then I think a few assists as well, I mean, he's putting up generational numbers. But this is where things get a little iffy with a player like Jokic. We've seen a lot of players go through Sporting, perform exceptionally well, and then go to a bigger team like in the Premier League, and then they kind of just fall off because I mean the pressure is just too high, and the difference in the league is quite noticeable. But maybe Victor Gyökeres can be that one-off guy, can be the difference. But we'll see. At 26 years old, I mean, he's not very young, but he's kind of starting to itch into the prime of his career. So I think a move is definitely definitely gonna need a move in the summer. But also had to throw in Maxi Araujo, who I think got the third goal right in the second half, right in the beginning of the second half, 20 seconds in, and I had to throw it in there because he's an ex-Toluca man, played in Liga MX, and for him to be scoring now in the Champions League against Manchester City, I'm sure his mind is just in la la la, and he's got to be elated for himself, for his career, and I just have to throw that in there as well because Liga MX is everywhere in this world. Now moving over to another big match in between Lille and Juventus, a Juventus team who definitely need a win in the Champions League after just losing against Stuttgart 1-0, I believe just last week or a few weeks ago. And Lille, who are on fire in the Champions League, especially Jonathan David, who did get his goal. I mean, it was him to get the lead against Lille, and you thought that would have been the match winner as well. It was a beautiful run from Zegrova. He takes on one, two, three players, and then places this beautiful ball in between three Juventus defenders. And I mean, just takes them out of the play. Jonathan David's 1v1 with the goalkeeper, and Jonathan David, he is deadly in front of goal, one of the best strikers, if not the best striker in all of CONCACAF. I think he has 13 goals now all season. There's a reason why all the big clubs are monitoring him in Europe. So he's proving why he is such a lethal striker. His clinicality in front of goal, showing it against Juventus, and yeah, you thought that would have been game over because Lille are very good at holding a lead, as we saw against Madrid just a couple weeks ago when they beat Madrid at home as well. But Juventus, they do get a penalty, kind of iffy, kind of soft. I don't know. You guys let me think what you thought of that penalty. But Vlahovic in front of goal from the penalty spot, he's not missing those. It's 1-1, and I think it's a fair result. Both teams, I mean, definitely at least deserve something from this game. So Lille, Juventus, 1-1. I didn't really expect Celtic to do really anything in this Champions League campaign. As we know, when it comes to Celtic in the Champions League, they're always exiting in the group stages. And in this league phase, it seems to be more favorable to the smaller clubs. And I'm talking to Lille, I'm talking to Celtic, I'm talking to Sporting now as well, Aston Villa, who were on top just right before we started this match week. So not necessarily saying that they're small clubs, but compare them to like a Juventus, a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, a Manchester City. I mean, to see these clubs performing and getting wins, and I mean, I understand that it's against Leipzig, but to get a 3-1 win against Leipzig at home, it's very important to them. And they had won their first game against Slovak Bratislava. They were beaten badly against Borussia Dortmund, and you thought, okay, it's just this is bound to happen to Celtic. But then they drew away against Atalanta, and I don't know if that was the changing point for a team like Celtic, where they're like, okay, we can compete against these bigger teams. Now Celtic with the win against the Leipzig team, who were performing very well in the Bundesliga. I think they were on top. I think recently Bayern Munich took the first place spot. Leipzig are now in second place. But for Celtic, I mean, to put 3 goals against them, it was very impressive. And the main point was the relentless press of Celtic. I mean, they were all over the field, and once it became this game of back and forth where the pitch was opening up, the game was opening up for both teams. Celtic took complete advantage, and it was Nicholas Kuhn who doubles with his double. He was the one to really surprise Leipzig. He was the man of the match because I mean, his first goal, a beautiful curler. whether it was on purpose or an accident, doesn't really matter. I don't think he's going to care. But for him to score in the Champions League against an opposition like Leipzig, a beautiful goal at that as well, and then another tap in to give them the lead, and then the 3-1 to seal the deal. I forgot who scored it, but that's when the game was fully opened up and Celtic just took advantage of that. So Celtic with a very important win in the Champions League, making it 7 points in this Champions League campaign in four matches. And Leipzig, surprisingly, with 0 points. They are in 31st place out of 35 or 36 teams, 0 points. A team like Leipzig is, I mean, to have 0 points in the Champions League, and they definitely, I mean, I know they have probably one of the more difficult runs in this Champions League league phase format, but I mean, 0 points, that's a shocker, to be honest, from a team like Leipzig. And then we go to the early game in PSV versus Girona. I had to throw this game in here because PSV were just too impressive, far impressive. And I understand that Girona are not the best team anymore. I mean, they did get third place in La Liga last year. And I mean, under Michel, they were. I mean, they showed as to why they deserved to be in Champions League spots. They beat teams like Barcelona. They had beaten Real Madrid. They had beaten Atletico. They beat all the bigger boys in La Liga last season. But unfortunately, when you have a wonder season like Girona did last season, your team typically gets picked apart. We saw players like Savinho going back to City on loan, where he was at Girona on loan. Savinho goes back to his parent club in Manchester City. We see Alex Garcia got picked by Bayer Leverkusen. Who else? Artem Dovbyk, who went to Roma for whatever reason. Honestly, he could have been playing Champions League ball, but he decided to go to Roma, who are struggling in the Serie A. But that's besides the point. But PSV today just took full advantage of a team like Girona that have no experience in the Champions League, manager like Michel, who has no experience in the Champions League as well. And I mean, PSV showing that they've been here, done that, they have the experience. And the main man was Malik Tillman in the midfield, who he got a goal, he got an assist, and he was pulling the strings everywhere. The American, I mean, he was probably one of the best Americans in the Champions League this past few games. And yeah, no, 100% showing why he deserves to be the man in the middle. And I mean, to get a goal and assist, and understandably against a team like Girona, yeah, PSV definitely deserved a 4-0 win. A Girona that only have one win, and that's against Slovia Bratislava. So for Girona, I don't really see them kind of getting out of this slump that they're in. I mean, they're going to only face more difficult oppositions. Um, and for PSV, I mean, they've been kind of iffy. That's typically how they go in the Champions League. A few wins here, a few losses there. They didn't make it out of the round of. I think they made it into the round of 16 last season. I think they will probably be able to get out of um, or get into the knockout phases, but I think that's it. It's just going to be first round exit once again for PSV. I don't really think they have a much higher ceiling than that. But that kind of wraps up most of the surprising results in this UEFA Champions League match week 4, at least the beginning part of this match week 4. We have some more games tomorrow. There will be another reaction tomorrow. Make sure you guys tune in, drop a like, please subscribe if you want to hear anything else in the world of football. Just comment down below. I'm here for you guys. Thank you for listening. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.